Sleep Spell presents The Luxon and the Kryn Dynasty. Everything explained. In the wastes of Shorhaz, beneath eternal darkness and scorched earth, one of the most fascinating civilizations in Critical Role's world of Exandria thrives. The Kryn Dynasty stands as a nation built not on bloodlines or conquest alone, but on an extraordinary religious belief that promises something most mortals can only dream of: true reincarnation, with all your memories intact. At the heart of this civilization lies the Luxon, a deity unlike any other in Exandria's pantheon, and a form of magic so powerful and mysterious that nations have gone to war over its secrets. Today, we're diving deep into everything you need to know about the Luxon, the Kryn Dynasty, their practice of consecution, the reality-bending magic of Dunamancy, and the war that brought the Mighty Nein into the heart of one of Wildermount's greatest conflicts. The Luxon, fragments of pre-creation. Before we can understand the Kryn Dynasty, we need to understand what they worship. The Luxon, also known as the Light, or the First Light, is fundamentally different from the gods of Exandria's main pantheon. According to Kryn religious belief, the Luxon existed before creation itself, before even the founding when the gods arrived on Exandria. The creation myth of the Luxon goes like this. In the primordial darkness before anything existed, a single light emerged. Other lights formed around this original light and settled as stars, content to burn in place. But the Luxon was different. It resisted the urge to simply burn, and instead chose to travel through the void, seeking self-knowledge and understanding of its own divine nature. During its cosmic journey, the Luxon discovered Exandria when it was still a cold, lifeless, and lonely rock drifting through space. The Luxon, itself alone and not fully understanding its own divinity, felt a kinship with this barren world. In an act of profound sacrifice and love, the Luxon embraced Exandria and scattered itself across the planet, bringing fire and life to a dead world. This is where the story gets truly interesting, because unlike most deities who exist as singular entities, the Luxon literally broke itself apart. Its physical form shattered into multiple pieces that remain buried throughout Exandria to this day. These fragments are called Luxon Beacons, and they're not just holy relics. They are the actual physical body of their god, containing genuine divine essence and power. The beacons themselves are remarkable objects. They appear as grey, quartz-like dodecahedrons that glow with an inner light. They're deceptively heavy, ranging in size from about the size of a human head to slightly larger. When active, they emanate a shimmering, translucent grey mist, the visible manifestation of Dunamancy energy, the fundamental force that the Luxon represents. Since the founding of the Kryn Dynasty, they have recovered multiple beacons through excavation and exploration. At various points in the Mighty Nein's campaign, the dynasty possessed between 3 and 4 beacons, though 2 were stolen by the Dwendalian Empire, which becomes crucial to understanding the war that followed. But what makes the Luxon truly unique in Exandrian theology is its apparent alien nature. Thelis, one of the dynasty's most brilliant minds, theorized that the Luxon's dunamantic divinity is fundamentally different from the divine power of the main pantheon. Even the matron of ravens, a deity herself, acknowledged that there exists a unique alien power still in Exandria that weaves itself through a cycle of rebirth. This suggests the Luxon might not be a god in the traditional sense at all, but something else entirely, something that predates the very concept of divinity as Exandria understands it. Consecution, reincarnation with memories. The most profound gift the Luxon offers its followers is consecution, a process that makes the Kryn Dynasty unlike any other civilization in Exandria. Through the power of the Luxon Beacons, worthy followers can be soul-bound to the Luxon itself, entering a cycle of death and rebirth where they retain the memories of their previous lives. Here's how it works. When someone has proven their faith and dedication to the Luxon through word and deed, they are claimed by one of the dynasty's ruling dens, the noble houses that govern Kryn society. In a sacred ceremony, they undergo Consecution, where their soul is bound to a Luxon Beacon. From that moment forward, when they die, their soul returns to that beacon and waits. Eventually, the soul is reborn into a new body somewhere in the dynasty's territories. The child grows up normally at first, with no knowledge of their past life, but around adolescence, something remarkable happens. They begin to experience dreams and visions of their previous existence. These memories grow stronger and clearer until the young person achieves full anamnesis, the complete remembrance of who they were before. Once anamnesis occurs, the reborn individual is returned to their den, the noble house they belonged to in their previous life. They reclaim their position, their relationships, and their purpose, continuing the work they began lifetimes ago. It's important to note that dens are not traditional families based on blood relation. While some members might be related by birth in their current life, others are spiritual family, bound together by shared purpose and the Luxon's blessing across multiple lifetimes. The ultimate goal of Consecution is to live enough lives, to gather enough experience and wisdom, to become what the Kryn call an Umavi, a perfect soul. An Umavi has lived so many lives and learned so much that they understand the true meaning of existence and can help reassemble the Luxon when it is eventually reborn whole. Leilas Kryn herself, the bright queen and founder of the dynasty, is the first Umavi. She was born before the calamity, making her well over 1,000 years old across her multiple lifetimes. She was present when the first Luxon Beacon was discovered, and she has guided her people through countless cycles of rebirth. But Consecution isn't available to everyone. It's a privilege reserved for those who have truly proven themselves. The process requires a Luxon Beacon to function, which means the loss of even a single beacon is catastrophic, not just as a religious tragedy, but as a literal loss of the dynasty's ability to continue their cycles of rebirth. When a beacon is lost, all the souls bound to it are cut off from their chance at reincarnation, facing true death like any other mortal. The religious and philosophical implications of Consecution are staggering. Imagine living multiple lifetimes, carrying forward everything you've learned. A warrior becomes more skilled with each life. A scholar accumulates centuries of knowledge. Relationships deepen across multiple incarnations. The Bright Queen's partner through multiple lifetimes, Quana Kryn, serves as High General of the dynasty's armies. They've loved each other, fought together, died, and found each other again across the centuries. This is why the theft of the Luxon Beacons wasn't just an act of war. It was an existential threat to the Kryn way of life, a spiritual catastrophe that demanded any response, no matter how violent. Dunamancy, gravity, time, and probability. The Luxon Beacons don't just enable Consecution. They are also the source of one of the most powerful and mysterious forms of magic in all of Exandria, Dunamancy. Dunamancy is the study and manipulation of dunamis, which is described as the primal magical energy of potentiality and actuality, an anticipatory arcane force that helps shape the multiverse and might very well be what holds its elements together, like an infinite web of unseen tethers. In simpler terms, Dunamancy is magic that controls the fundamental forces of reality, gravity, time, entropy, and probability itself. The Kryn Dynasty discovered Dunamancy through their study of the Luxon Beacons and have been developing and refining it for centuries. They guard its secrets jealously, understanding that this knowledge represents both immense power and immense danger in the wrong hands. The dynasty has its own capital, Gordranas, now called Rosona, where they've conducted dunamantic research and refinement for generations, in near-total secrecy. Dunamancy manifests in several distinct specializations. Graviturgy focuses on manipulating gravitational forces. Graviturgists can alter the weight of objects, create zones of crushing gravity, pull enemies into danger, or even accelerate attacks to devastating effect. In combat, a skilled graviturgist might cast a spell like Gravity Sinkhole, creating a vortex of crushing force that pulls enemies together before obliterating them, or Gravity Fissure, which tears a line across the battlefield while dragging nearby creatures into its destructive path. Chronergy, on the other hand, deals with the manipulation of time itself. Chronergists can subtly speed up or slow down the flow of time around creatures or objects. They might give an ally an extra moment to react in combat, allowing them to move first in any situation, or they could pause an enemy in temporal stasis, freezing them between one moment and the next. The most powerful chronologists can even peer into alternate timelines, seeing what might have been, and manipulating fate to ensure the outcome they desire. But perhaps the most visible application of Dunamancy is the Echo Knight, a martial warrior who has learned to manifest echoes of themselves from alternate timelines. These aren't illusions or copies. They're genuine alternative versions of the warrior pulled from timelines where they made different choices, stood in different places, or lived different lives. An Echo Knight can position their echo strategically, then swap places with it instantly, creating a fighting style that's almost impossible to predict or counter. The dynasty's soldiers often employ this technique, appearing in one location only to suddenly strike from another as they trade places with their temporal echo. The dynasty has also learned to create fragments of possibility, small motes of crystallized dunamis energy that store potential futures. When someone uses a fragment, they effectively reach into a timeline where they succeeded at a task they just failed, pulling that success into their current reality, its probability manipulation made tangible. During the Mighty Nein's journey, they discovered that the ancient civilization of Aeor had also experimented with Dunamancy, calling a Luxon Beacon the relic, or the primal artifact. This revelation suggested that Dunamancy might be even older than the Kryn Dynasty suspected, perhaps dating back to the age of Arcanum itself. The Aeorians had developed research into time manipulation and temporal travel, though their civilization was destroyed before they could fully realize these ambitions. The Cerberus Assembly, the Dwendalian Empire's organization of powerful mages, desperately wanted to unlock Dunamancy's secrets. They had tried for years to understand and weaponize this magic, seeing its potential for warfare. Working with stolen Luxon Beacons and kidnapped researchers like Yeza Branato, they managed to create dunamis fields that could slow or accelerate time around objects and creatures, and they even succeeded in distilling pure dunamis energy into usable weapons. But their understanding remained crude compared to the dynasty's centuries of research and spiritual connection to the source of this power. The War of Ash and Light. The conflict between the Kryn Dynasty and the Dwendalian Empire, known as the War of Ash and Light, was the defining geopolitical event of Campaign 2, and the Mighty Nein found themselves caught directly in the middle of it. The war's origins lie in theft and betrayal. The Dwendalian Empire, through agents of the Cerberus Assembly, had acquired 2 Luxon Beacons, though the dynasty believed they had been stolen by force. In reality, the situation was far more complex and tragic. Essek Thelis, the dynasty's shadow hand and one of their most trusted operatives, had secretly given the beacons to the Cerberus Assembly for mutual research purposes. Essek was brilliant, but young in terms of consecution, having only lived one life. He craved knowledge and advancement more than he valued the spiritual traditions of his people, and he made a catastrophic choice that would lead to war. The dynasty, unaware of Essek's treachery, believed their sacred relics had been stolen by the Empire, an act so heinous it demanded immediate response. Without those beacons, countless souls bound to them would face true death, their chance at consecution severed. the spiritual and practical implications were devastating. The war began in earnest on the 3rd of Fesseran in 835 post-divergence, when the Kryn Dynasty launched an attack on the Ashgard garrison, the fortress guarding the empire's border with Xhorhas. That same day, 2 dynasty operatives executed a daring raid on the Zauber Spire in Zadash, one of the empire's major cities, specifically to recover one of the stolen beacons. Though both operatives died in the attempt, they successfully secured the beacon before dying, though it fell into the hands of the Mighty Nein rather than returning directly to the dynasty. The dynasty then escalated their offensive by using their Dunamantic knowledge to tunnel beneath the Ashkeeper Peaks, the mountain range that had traditionally protected the empire from invasion. They emerged in the town of Felderwin, attacking under cover of darkness and kidnapping key individuals, including Yeza Branato, who had been unknowingly working for the Cerberus Assembly on Dunamantic weapons research. The conflict threatened to engulf all of Wildermount. The dynasty was determined to recover their beacons and punish those responsible for the theft. The empire, led by King Bertrand Dwendal and influenced heavily by the Cerberus Assembly, viewed the dynasty as dangerous zealots practicing forbidden magic and threatening the empire's sovereignty. The tension was religious, political, and deeply personal. The people of the empire had been taught to fear those from Xhorhas, often derogatorily called cricks, because of the cricket-like sound the dynasty's soldiers' armor made when they charged into battle. Meanwhile, the dynasty saw the empire as thieves and heretics who had committed an unforgivable crime against their faith and their people. The Mighty Nein became the unlikely bridge between these two nations. When Caleb Widogast presented the recovered Luxon Beacon directly to the Bright Queen, tears streaming down her face, everything changed. The dynasty had believed the beacon lost forever, and its return represented hope that peace might be possible. The Bright Queen declared the Mighty Nein heroes of the dynasty despite their origins in the empire, recognizing that their actions transcended politics. Later, the Mighty Nein worked to arrange peace talks between the two nations. They revealed Essex's betrayal, forcing both sides to confront the reality that the war had been built on deception. In the end, a ceasefire was established, prisoners were exchanged, and the second beacon was returned to the dynasty. The War of Ash and Light ended not with total victory for either side, but with a fragile peace, and the understanding that both nations had been manipulated. Beacons, religion, and culture. To understand the Kryn dynasty is to understand how thoroughly the Luxon's philosophy permeates every aspect of their society. This isn't just a nation that happens to follow a particular god. The dynasty is built from the ground up around the principles of consecution, the pursuit of knowledge across lifetimes, and the eventual goal of reassembling the Luxon. The dynasty's government reflects this. They are ruled by the Bright Queen, Leilas Kryn, who serves as both political leader and spiritual guide beneath her. 3 ruling dens govern the dynasty: Den Kryn, Den Mirim, and Den Thelis. These dens function somewhat like noble houses, but membership is determined by consecution rather than birth. When someone is consecrated, they are claimed by one of these dens based on their qualities and accomplishments. When they are reborn, they return to that den and are welcomed back into their spiritual family. The other dens beyond the ruling 3 serve various functions in Kryn society, creating a complex web of spiritual families, all working toward the common goal of understanding existence and serving the Luxon. This creates a fundamentally different social structure than most nations, where family and inheritance are based on bloodlines. In the dynasty, your most important relationships might span multiple lifetimes, and the person you call family might share no blood relation with you in this particular incarnation. The capital city, Rossona, embodies the dynasty's unique nature. The city exists in perpetual darkness, created and maintained by the dynasty's powerful magic. This isn't just aesthetic, it's practical. The dynasty's population is heavily Drow and Duergar, beings who suffer in sunlight. By maintaining eternal night around their capital, they've created a space where their people can thrive. The city is beautiful in its darkness, with glowing crystals and magical lights, creating an otherworldly atmosphere, unlike any other city in Wildermount. Symbols of the Luxon appear throughout dynasty culture. The dodecahedron shape of the beacons is seen in art, jewelry, and architecture. The names of Den Kryn's members all have meanings related to the sky and changes of light, honoring the Luxon's nature. Layla's means twilight, while Quana relates to dawn or awakening. Even these naming conventions reflect their devotion and their understanding of cycles, light, and rebirth. The dynasty's relationship with the Luxon is also notably different from how most Exandrians relate to their gods. The dynasty doesn't beg the Luxon for miracles or pray for divine intervention in the traditional sense. Instead, they see themselves as working in partnership with their scattered deity. They search for the remaining beacons. They perfect their understanding of Dunamancy. They live multiple lives to gain wisdom, and they prepare for the day when the Luxon will be whole again, and they can present it with all the knowledge they've gathered. It's a religion of active participation rather than passive worship. This extends to their view of death. While most mortals fear death as an ending, those who have achieved consecution view it as a transition, a doorway to the next life. This makes consecuted soldiers particularly fearless in battle. They fight, knowing that death isn't the end for them, that they'll return to continue their purpose. However, this also means that killing a consecuted individual isn't truly defeating them. They'll come back. The only way to truly end a consecuted soul is to destroy their beacon or prevent their rebirth somehow, which adds another layer of tragedy to the theft of the beacons. Yet not everyone in the dynasty undergoes consecution. It remains a privilege rather than a right, something that must be earned. This creates interesting class dynamics within their society. Those who have been consecuted, especially those who have lived multiple lives, hold significant social status and political power. Those who have not yet earned consecution work to prove themselves worthy, knowing that their chance at eternal life hangs in the balance. The dynasty also maintains relationships with other races and cultures beyond just Drow and Duergar. They've established trade routes, diplomatic outposts, and even attempted to spread their faith to other nations. A particularly notable incident involved the dynasty sending a delegation to the Scars of Scale and Tooth, a Dragonborn-led government, attempting to convert them to the Luxon. When one Dragonborn rejected the offer, calling the faith a curse and propaganda, the Bright Queen, affected by recent nightmares from Lolth, killed him in anger. This incident reveals both the dynasty's missionary ambitions and the reality that they are not perfect. They are people, subject to the same emotions and mistakes as anyone else, despite their spiritual practices. The dynasty's view of magic also sets them apart. While the Dwendalian Empire fears and heavily regulates magic through the Cerberus Assembly, the dynasty embraces it as a tool for understanding the universe. Their Dunamancers aren't feared as dangerous aberrations. They're celebrated as scholars who are unraveling the mysteries of existence itself. This creates a culture that values education, experimentation, and the pursuit of knowledge, though it also led to the creation of powerful warriors and weapons that made the war particularly devastating. Finally, there's the prophecy of the Bright Child, a development that emerged during Campaign 2. The Bright Queen foresaw a child conceived by the Luxon itself, a prophesied individual who would herald a new age for the dynasty. When Quana Kryn became pregnant with what was believed to be this prophesied child, news spread throughout the dynasty, inspiring hope and fervor. This prophecy represents the dynasty's belief in their destiny, their faith that the Luxon has a plan for them, and that they are building towards something greater than just survival or conquest. Conclusion. The Luxon and the Kryn Dynasty represent some of Matthew Mercer's most creative and thoughtful world-building in Critical Role. In a world filled with gods and devils, dragons and demons, he introduced something truly alien, a deity that sacrificed itself before the world even began, a civilization built on the promise of endless rebirth, and a form of magic that manipulates the very building blocks of reality. The dynasty challenges us to think about what we would do with multiple lifetimes. Would we use them to gain wisdom like the Umavi? Would we repeat the same mistakes across each incarnation? How would our relationships change if we could remember loving someone across multiple lives? How would warfare change if soldiers knew death wasn't permanent? These aren't just fantasy concepts. They're philosophical questions that give the dynasty depth beyond just being an exotic setting. The tragedy of the War of Ash and Light comes from the fact that it was built on misunderstanding and betrayal. The dynasty didn't know Essek had given away the beacons willingly. The Empire didn't understand the spiritual significance of what they'd been studying. Both sides fought and died over a miscommunication, making it a very human conflict, despite the fantasy elements involved. Through the Mighty Nein's journey, we got to see the dynasty not as mysterious antagonists, but as complex people with their own dreams, fears, and flaws. Essek's eventual redemption arc showed that even consecuted souls can make terrible mistakes. The Bright Queen's tears when she saw the beacon returned revealed the depth of her relief and hope. The dynasty's willingness to make peace, rather than pursue vengeance to the bitter end, demonstrated wisdom earned across centuries of life. The Luxon remains mysterious. We still don't know if it was truly a god, an alien entity, or something else entirely. We don't know how many beacons remain buried in Exandria, waiting to be found. We don't know what will happen if all the pieces are ever reunited. But that mystery is part of what makes the concept so compelling. The Luxon represents potential, possibility, and the unknown, which is thematically perfect for a deity whose magic literally manipulates those very concepts. The Kryn Dynasty continues to exist in Exandria, rebuilding after the war, searching for more beacons, and guiding their people through cycles of death and rebirth. They remain one of the most unique and fascinating cultures Critical Role has ever introduced, a testament to what happens when fantasy world-building asks not just, what if magic existed, but how would magic fundamentally change the way people think about life, death, and purpose? And somewhere in the darkness of Rosona, the Luxon Beacons continue to glow with grey light, holding within them the souls of thousands waiting to be born again, carrying forward memories of lives lived and lessons learned, slowly assembling the puzzle of existence piece by piece, life by life, until the day comes when the light is whole once more.